devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy, and Pierre having some connection issues here. So if I lose you, I will call back in and do via audio. All right, my friend?
You look good to me.
Thank you very much. Checks in the mail. Anyhow, Pierre, great night of hockey last night. The Carolina Hurricanes close out their series with a 3-1 victory over the Washington Capitals, and then the Winnipeg Jets staying alive with a 4-0 win. Typical on home ice. Hellebuck, brilliant again. And they extend the series to 6 against the Dallas Stars. Before we bring our guest on, Steve Werier will be joining us shortly. A quick reaction from you to each game.
Thought the early game was Carolina playing an amazing road game, which they're so good at. Rod Brindamore, outstanding coach. Jeff Daniels, Tim Gleason. Hats off to that coaching staff. That team was prepared. They were on it. I was really disappointed with the fundamental play of Washington. I didn't think they were nearly as good fundamentally. Their line changes were bad. Their face-off play was bad. Their special teams play was bad. Their power play was inept the entire series. I know Carolina's real good penalty killing, but Washington wasn't ready for it. For a long time, we're waiting for the top guys to get going, and this was a problem. Dubois had a tough series, and Strome had a tough series. Because those two guys had tough series, their wingers had tough series. And it created a problem for Washington. Washington was not full value. And I think even when they do their debrief, you could hear it from their coach. They weren't as good as they could have been or should have been, but a lot of that's because of how well Carolina played. And then in the late game, everybody, and I anointed Connor Hellebuck some respect too after last night. But the more I think about it, and the more I broke down tape, Connor Hellebuck only faced 9 shots in the first 40 minutes of that game. Faced 9 shots. That was not a good Dallas game. No. That was not a good, we're giving Washington a hard time. They had 10 shots after 40 minutes. And, they picked it up in the third because it was urgent. But think about it for a second. Dallas, they weren't full value last night. And DeBoer having an audience that's plugged in for game 5 or game 6, excuse me. He'll have an audience that's plugged in for game 6 in Dallas. And I don't think they'll play the same way as they played in game 5. I think Dallas will be a lot better.
I agree with everything you just said there. On the front, first off, my reaction just to Carolina, Washington, just quick question for you there. And look, I want to preface this by saying I think he's on the way to being one of the best coaches in the NHL. And I'm talking about Mr. Carberry on the Washington Capitals. I think he's got the potential. He's already shown that he does in the regular season. Yep. But would you agree with me that these were lessons learned? This is part of the track up the coaching ranks, that it's a different season in the playoffs when it comes to, you mentioned adjustments there. You mentioned line changes and matchups. It seemed that he fell back a little in this series to Rod Brindamore in that respect. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. 100%. I would agree with that. And it's a really good point. One other thing, I know that I told you 10 days ago, after doing a big debrief with Scotty about some things in the league, trends, positive and negative, one of the things he said to me, and I know I shared it with you and our audience, he said, one of the things coaches aren't practicing enough today, getting their teams to stay on side. Watch how many big offsides in that game last night the Washington Capitals had. Massive amounts. If you have 2 in a game that are taking away scoring chances, that's a lot. I'm going to say they had 4 or 5. And that's to Scotty's point. And he said the difference is when he was coaching, there were no challenges for offside. So you got away with a lot more. Now there's a challenge almost every game, probably 2 or 3 challenges every game.
Yep.
Well, it's a big
and there
difference.
was that one, Pierre. It was just so obvious, right? They knew right away. I don't remember a review that fast.
Oh, that was so crystal clear. Once you saw the reverse angle of that, you knew that was offside. Like that wasn't even, exactly. They went right to it. It's like, let's go, move on. Let's go.
Which I love, by the way, right? It was great. Yeah, just the second game there that I got there, I agree with everything you said about Dallas, and I think we'll see a much better Dallas game in game 6. but I want to give credit where it's due on Winnipeg too.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
that was the most complete game I think they played all series. And I'm glad you said that, and not to take away from Hellebuck, but I'm glad you pointed out the game that was played in front of him and how great Winnipeg did at shutting down Dallas and frustrating them. And the one other thing I want to point out about that game, when Scheifele got sucker punched by Ben, flagrant, I thought it should have been a penalty. I don't get it, whatever, but that's that. But he was seen red. And I'm watching that, and I'm like, they better watch him. And they saw the same thing. And I give a great credit to his teammates and specifically to his coach, Scott Arnale, who went over there, calmed him down. He said, hey, buddy, we got this. Just chill. That was huge there because, what if all of a sudden he reverses it and it turns up going on him and they ended up getting an extra penalty? I thought that was a great job by the team calming down their player. And I just felt like their bench was really in sync, not just there, but just in terms of line changes and situational matchups. I thought that's the best we saw Winnipeg in this series, Pierre.
Yeah, I agree. That's really well said. I agree with you, Jimmy. One other thing, Jamie Benn, you talk about the discipline from Scotty Arnale over to Mark Scheifele. Pete DeBoer is going to have a little chat with Jamie Benn.
And I'm sure he will.
He's gone over the edge a couple times in this series in particular. He has.
Yeah.
And, I understand the league. I understand the league's fining him. That's fine. That's good. I'm not sure there's an appetite for sucker punching in the league office. No. I'm not. I know those guys really well that run that department. I'm not sure there's an appetite for that. So I think Pete DeBoer is going to have to reel that in pretty quick with all his players. But obviously Ben's had a couple in this series in particular.
Yeah. And you don't need that from your captain. You just don't.
No,
you just don't.
No. That's not how. That's not how Jamie Benn should be remembered as a player. By the way, I know his contract's up at the end of the year. Jamie Benn's been an amazing player. I have to go back to the 2009 World Junior in Ottawa with Jamie, and I can tell you right now, he was world class for so long. And when the game started getting faster, and Jamie Benn looked like he was going to have a tough time keeping up, I can tell you right now, because I did a lot of games in Dallas in those days, nobody in the league worked harder to make himself faster than Jamie Benn. Nobody. Yeah. Just telling you. So it's not that I got any animus towards Jamie Benn. I don't. I have unbelievable respect. But he's a better player than what he showed last night in terms of what he did with Scheifele. He's better than that.
I agree. Well, let's get to our guest right now because he does have a connection to one of the teams still alive in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that is former Florida Panthers assistant GM Steve Werier joining us here on the eye test. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Jimmy, what's up? Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Welcome aboard.
Good, Pierre.
Good to have you.
Welcome aboard. Well, as I said to you, Steve, one of the reasons I thought you'd be a great guest is because you do know a lot about analytics, and you worked in the league as an assistant GM with the Panthers there. And I look at it right now, there's two teams right now that are still alive in the playoffs. One of them being the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are going into a Game 6 elimination game right now, where they could find themselves out of the playoffs again. And they're very heavy on analytics. And also the team we just discussed, the Carolina Hurricanes, who are once again advancing to the conference final, another team heavy on analytics. My question to you is, when you look at those two teams, why is one of them advancing and one might not when it comes to the analytics side?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the short answer is you could make an argument that probably Toronto's up against a tougher team than Carolina was, but that's not the fun answer. The fun answer is, I think part of Carolina's success is based on compounding, right? Like, they've been doing this for a long time with a really good alignment all the way down from ownership to Eric Tulsky to Rob Brindamore. And that's huge, right? Like, they're both excellent teams, Toronto and Carolina. They both have big staffs full of, really smart, innovative people with all the new data and tracking information you could want. But, you look at Carolina, and Rod's been there as a coach for 15 years. He was a player there before, but he's been part of the coaching staff since 2011. Tulsky's been there since 2013, and he's worn a few different hats, but this team reflects Eric Tulsky. And I think if you asked, folks around there, they would say Eric's had an impact on, certainly the draft, but other aspects of that org before he became GM for quite some time. And there's some real good synergies there between Eric and Rod, right? You look at a sign like Carrier, that's a guy who, they signed for 6 years. His high in goals is 10. His career high in points is 20. That's not necessarily your stats darling points per 60 poster boy right there, but Will Carrier is like the model Rod Brindamore player, and Eric Chalsky knows that. And he goes out and he gets guys Rod likes, and again, so they've been doing it for some time. An NHL team, is Gary, you've run a bunch of them and coached a bunch. They're living trees. They don't start anew every season. They're based on the mistakes and the good decisions of the past. And that sort of helps dictate the future. So, that's Carolina on one hand. Toronto, they've, the same time that you've had Rod and Eric, you had, the Lou Lamoriello, Mark Hunter, Kyle Dubas sort of three-headed back and forth entity. Then you had Kyle, but you also had Brendan sort of in the mix there, where you had probably a few different folks who had different mindsets of where to take things. And now you have Brad in there with Craig Berube instead of, Sheldon Keefe, instead of Mike Babcock. So to me, that's probably a key differentiator. We can talk about some of the bigger stuff cap construction and roster management and all that. But I think it just helps that compounding of having that alignment between, a coach and a GM that goes back some time. The absence of that causes lots of problems, and having that and distractions, that lets you focus on everything, including the spreadsheets.
Hey, Steve, speaking of that, how does a player like Sam Bennett become available?
Great question. I think probably the real answer, which is maybe you got a guy on a team who might think he should be playing in a certain role or at a certain position, and maybe he's not getting those opportunities. That happens now and then. But you've seen it in a lot of, the Sam Bennett's of the world. Like Sam Reinhart was available, and he didn't go for a massive return. There's players like that, time and again throughout the league. There's sort of misvaluation, or maybe teams are prioritizing one guy over another, or one team might have sort of an embarrassment of riches, so to speak, where they just can't fit some great players under the cap, either because they have other good players or they have cap constraints. You could probably ask the same about Dylan Holloway, and we could go on and on and on.
No, Dylan Holloway doesn't fit in that one, with all due respect. Dylan Holloway was major managerial malfunction when they went out and got Arvidsson and Skinner. That's on them. That has nothing to do with Dylan Holloway. That's completely different. These are, Sam Bennett's a totally different kettle of fish. Sam Reinhart's a different kettle of fish. But I agree with you on what you just said. The other one, that's in the weeds, man. That's totally different. Broberg and Holloway, that's internal foul-ups by their management team. That has nothing to do with the genius of St. Louis. That has to do with ineptness on Edmonton's part. But I'm just curious, because I see all these guys. I'm curious, Dylan Cousins. What was the rush to move him?
You'd have to ask the guys in Buffalo. They probably had a season that they didn't like, which leads to, going back to the comment about Carolina, right? When, the seas are calm, you probably don't get forced into unforced errors, right? We've all been there on teams in different roles. And so when you have that alignment and the calmness, you're less hesitant to make short-term decisions. You're less hesitant to make rash decisions. You're less hesitant to say, hey, our fan base is up in arms, yelling, do something. What can we do that has a large impact? And you can't have large impact by trading a fourth liner. So you narrow it down. Cousins looked pretty good in Ottawa to the eye test. Young player, high upside. A lot of scouts I talked to, you probably talked to, are pretty high on him. But probably the root cause of that is juxtapose Carolina's consistency and alignment with a Buffalo org that has seen a lot of guys in a lot of different chairs, and a lot of struggles, and an owner who's seen things go far better on the football field than on the hockey rink, and probably is clamoring for some change. And was that the right change? I guess only time will tell, but for now probably doesn't look too great.
No, but I love that, Jimmy. See what I mean? So that's a smart statement by Steve, I think.
Yeah,
really smart, because the pressure of the football program on the hockey program is pretty significant, I think. Because you walk around town, you're like, your Bills are rocking. And then you walk around in the wintertime when football's over, your team stinks. So that's the last memory you have.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. So true. Hey, Steve, talk about the team you used to work for, the Florida Panthers. So you saw how they went during the time you were there. How much has it changed, in your opinion, in terms of them being, because I know when they started off, it seemed like they were more analytics versus eye tests. And I think as time has gone on, I don't know if you'll agree with me, I feel like they blended terrifically. I feel like out of some of the teams that are in the playoffs right now, they blend both together better than anyone.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, listen, whatever they're doing it very, very well. It means at the end of the day, when the information is on the desk of the decision makers, it's good info, and they're able to action it well. And those are two different things, right? Like I always used to say to our group when we had a bunch of young sort of gung-ho scouts, I said, there's no points in May of saying, hey, in October, I told you this player was going to be good, and he was. The only points are if you come to me and say, this guy's good, and here's a way to go get him. Because otherwise, it's just fantasy hockey. And so Florida's done a great job of both generating information. They have some brilliant analytical minds like Sonny Mehta, who's sort of like a peer of the Eric Tulsky and Tyler Dellos of the world. They got some smart minds in there, but they also have the ability to pick up the phone and make the deals and then sign the right contracts. And, I don't have, obviously, this clear line of sight into their inner workings now as I did when, I was in that management group, but I can draw a good analogy, which is, you mentioned at the top, Jimmy, or Pierre, about, Tulsky and Carolina being an analytics-driven team. I'll throw an inconvenient truth at you guys, which is, I think Eric Tulsky probably uses the eye test and video scouting and incorporates that into decision-making more and arguably better than most of the old school eye test GMs that you might think sort of operate that way. And I'll give you an example. Like when Carolina is hiring a new scout, the way they go about doing that is pretty much the same way like Amazon and Google hires. Like they call you up and say, Jimmy, Pierre, you guys both worked in the league. You're both scouts. You want to come work for me? Here's what you're going to do. You're both going to watch 10 hours of video and you're going to submit reports on what you see. And you're not going to put your name on the reports because we don't want to know that, the great Pierre McGuire sent this report in and we're going to give it a 10 out of 10 because we want Pierre. We're just going to blind them all and look at all the reviews that come in and look at that. And then if we say, Jimmy's report looks pretty good, the next step is we'll get you on the phone on a video call like this, and we'll have you watch video in real time. And we'll cross-examine you like a old school lawyer and say, Jimmy, you said Jacob Slavin is bad on his opposite side. What do you think of these three clips here? And they'll put you on that. And like, they're really rigorous on the eye test. And when they're making that decision, again, like who are we signing and who are we going for? It is not numbers on a spreadsheet. What they do differently is like, they aren't signing tall players. Eric Tulsky's realized that if you want to be tough as a team, it's not about who's tall, it's about who's strong. And that's why they go and get like Logan Stankoven, who's like 5'9". But he gets pucks and he goes to top, he goes to tough areas, and they get like, Fensource, some of their draft picks who are like 5'9" little guys. You talk to scouts around the league and they'll say like, that guy plays heavy. So to your point, like there's a merger of the old school eye test and the data and then actual execution that Carolina does well, Florida does well, and, Toronto does well too. And we'll all praise Toronto for it even more if they can pull off a couple more wins.
Pull off a miracle.
It's interesting. That used to be Lou Lamoriello's theory. It wasn't about height. It was about hockey strong. Sergei Brelin, Zach Parise, you go like Brian Rafalski, Scotty Niedermayer, none of them are big people, but that was the philosophy. It was about hockey strength. It wasn't about height or length or anything else. It was about how hockey strong you were. And that was how the Devils were built for a long time. So I like that. That's a really good take by Steve. Steve, what about Florida? Like, I thought they were going to run out of gas. I've been part of it where you win back-to-back, and the third year, you win the President's Trophy, and then you run out of steam. Are you surprised at how robust they still are, especially when you consider Montour's in Seattle, Oliver Ekman in Toronto, Lomborg is in Calgary. Like, they lost some guys from last year. Stenlin went to Utah. Some really important players are gone. I'm surprised they have this much jam in them. I really am.
Pierre, I'm not. Here's a clip. Like Josh Hart on the Knicks, who's a really cool guy, was asked after an NBA game, like, weren't you guys tired? You and Jalen Brunson played 42 of 48 minutes last night. Weren't you exhausted? And his response was, he goes, there's people who work in grocery stores from 6 a.m. until 2 in the morning to make ends meet. They're tired. I'm playing a game. I'm not tired. Like, I'm going to fight through it. And like, obviously there's a little truth and a little like untruth in that comment, but like, I know some of those guys pretty well, like Sasha Barkov and Aaron Ekblad, and this is a legacy season for them. You worked in Pittsburgh, right? Like, winning once is fine, but not everyone can name the winner from like 9 seasons ago off the top of their head, but everyone can name the dynasties. And if you go to the finals once and then you win twice in a row, like that's a legacy for life. So these guys are in great shape. I think they managed their season well tactically. Like you look at their sort of ups and downs. They were planning to play 16 games. They weren't planning to win 82 games. So I think they sort of gave themselves a little rest in the year. I think you see that now of like certain players who step up in the postseason who might not have been regular season contributors as much. So I think they paced themselves. I think they've probably got some good sports science behind them, well rested, not a ton of injuries. So doesn't shock me. I think they're built for this, and not really super surprised by them holding.
I love what you just said. I think the sports science part is what, we can focus on analytics, which is debatable, and all the other stuff, but the sports science stuff, I agree with Steve on that 100%. It's so much better than what it used to be. I mean, we had a star player taking a middle seat in the Stanley Cup final on the way from Pittsburgh to Minnesota, Mario Lemieux. True story. And the coaching staff saw him and said, the trainer, point at the trainer, skip there. You get in the back. He's getting in the front. But that's how teams used to travel, Steve. It's unbelievable. People don't realize that. Like, it's changed significantly. And that's just one little thing. Guys get in their own rooms. We had our starting goalie, Tommy Barrasso, had his own room. But I can tell you right now, nobody else had their own room.
That's because he was goalie, eh?
And it was Tommy. But it was all right, just how it worked. But I love what Steve said about the sports science, because that's the part that doesn't get enough attention, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Steve, you look at those acquisitions that they made leading into and at the deadline. I want to start with Seth Jones and just your take on when they made it, what you thought of it, and how is it measured up to what you thought of it since then?
I thought conceptually it was neat and interesting, and I like the logic of, you got to factor in the whole acquisition cost to a player. So trading for a player who makes $6 million a year versus trading for a player who makes $6 million a year and will cost you a first round pick. So draw an analogy to like Vancouver going after Marcus Pettersson, right? They traded a first to get him and they extended him. He's a fine defenseman, but it's tough to quantify. Like, would you rather pay a guy 5.5 and not have to give up a first, or would you pay him 5.8 and give up a first? There's some thinking in there, right? And so they got Seth Jones by having Chicago retain. It cost them Spencer Knight, but that's not necessarily a today cost because they've got their number one goalie for today in Bobrovsky. And, it seems like he fits in. Obviously, they've got some folks in who knew him from Columbus and elsewhere. And they have a very unique view of like what defensemen need to do in their system, I think, which is why some guys come in like a Nate Schmidt and, Mikkola and Kulikov, who sort of look a lot better in Florida than they might have in their last spots. And that's partly a testament to the guys you mentioned earlier, Pierre, like the Sam Bennett's and the Reinhardts, who probably make it, as you would know as a coach, probably a little bit easier in your own zone than otherwise, especially on a team like Buffalo. I thought it was a neat move. They had to be pretty confident. There's one-way doors and two-way doors, and a player making a lot of money for a fair number of years is more of those one-way door moves where you have to be super confident as opposed to a rental. But seems to be working out pretty well.
The other thing too, Steve, that doesn't get enough credit, the coaching staff. Jamie Compon's a real good coach. I look at Sylvain Lefebvre. The job he's done with their defensemen, it's been unbelievable. He's done a fantastic job with their defensemen. You talked about Nate Schmidt coming in. I think that Sylvain's done an amazing job, and Tuomo Ruutu is way underrated as a coach. He's a fantastic coach. So, I look at the whole thing. They got development, they got sports science, they got the analytics stuff that Steve's talking about, and they got coaching. Like they're a modern organization. They truly are. They're a modern organization. Steve's points have been really good. I appreciate your take, Steve. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve, I want to ask you, when you look at, as Pierre is saying, that they're a modern team and they've done a great job of progressing and combining everything. Is there a team you're kind of eyeing right now that is on that track that could be the next Florida?
That's a high mark to hit, right? To be the next Cup winner. But if you want a team that's sort of off the radar in that regard, that I think is doing some neat things that deserves a lot more credit than maybe they got this year, Columbus comes to mind, and listen, I'm biased. Columbus has a few folks who are in my group in Florida who I think are really sharp guys, but they've got a lot of guys who I haven't worked with, who I know of their work, who I think are real sharp and real progressive. And if you look at how Columbus, how they've drafted, how they've been opportunistic with their signings, both as free agents, but also like extending guys like Marchenko really early at great numbers, like. That's the type of surplus value contract that's the difference between, winning a cup and, to Pierre's point, like losing guys like, the Dylan Holloways. They've done really well. And like, obviously Monahan was hurt this year. That hindered them a bit, but if they'd been healthy, they would have likely gone in the playoffs. And that's a group, they aren't in a marquee market. They don't have massive tax benefits like some of the Sun Belt teams. And so I think a lot of credit to some of the guys who have been there a long time, like Josh Flynn and Rick Nash. I think they've done some really cool work without easy tailwinds. Really well said.
Yeah. That's the first team I was thinking of. We're big Fantilli fans on this show, so we like Fantilli a lot. We're big Werenski fans. We like him a lot, and I totally agree. I think they're one of the up and coming teams. Everybody's focused on Philly in that division in particular, the Metro. People are still talking about Pitt. I don't think Pitt's going to be there next year. Washington's got some stuff they're going to have to work out in the offseason. They got some stuff to work out. They could be one of those teams that goes from here to here. And it's not because they're a bad team. It's just that's part of the way it works. But Steve, that was good on Columbus. I agree with you. The interesting one, Steve, to me, we'll see where it goes, is Detroit. Because the expectation level in Detroit is not being met. You know what I mean? They're not meeting what they are expecting as a fan base or an ownership group. That's the one I'm curious to see how it turns out next year. I'm really curious to see how it turns out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Listen, Steve, we appreciate you taking the time and
good.
Really insightful stuff. Yeah, we appreciate it taking. And listen, we'll get you on again maybe in the off season when like free agency's going on, and we can kind of look at some of the players and how they fit into each team.
You were
awesome.
great,
Thanks, guys.
Steve, really good. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Fascinated by it. It was really good.
Thanks, Pierre. Thanks, Jimmy. Have a blast.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Steve Werier joining us, former Panthers assistant GM. Yeah, Pierre, I've been going back. He reached out to me, I'd say about 2 months ago, and we've just been keeping in touch via Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, direct messaging, talking about different players and stuff. And I said, this would be a great time to have him on. I just thought, I've been watching the Canes and the Leafs and looking at them. It's like, why can't the Leafs get over the hump? Like the Canes keep getting to the conference finals. So it was really nice to see it from his perspective.
Yeah, there are a lot. The sports scientist thing is not getting enough play. People are talking about analytics a lot, but that sports science stuff matters a lot. That's one of the things I can tell you in my last position, we were working doggedly to get, and we had some really good people in place. And some were hired, some we just couldn't afford to hire, but it started to turn. It really started to turn. So that's an important part of that. I'm glad he brought that up. It's one of the ones that the media doesn't give it enough,
I totally agree with you. And actually, I've got my friend Judy, who, by the way, thought that Melanie picked this shirt for me. She said, "You look nice." Like, where did I? So she said, she was just saying though, she's always wanted to write an essay or a study on sports science and stuff like that. And I got to ask you, Pierre, you were just talking about back in the days with Pittsburgh, when you got into that position with Ottawa that you had a few years back.
Yeah.
How much of a drastic difference was there? Like, how much did your eyes open when it came to sports science, and how much it's progressed since those days?
A lot. We had really good people in Ottawa, really, and a lot of them were maintained, which is great. But we had some really good people, and you could see we had a young team, but they were the benefit. Stutzla was one that stood out. Timmy was in there all the time working out, and this training staff did an amazing job with him. Sanderson came in a little bit late because he was playing at Dakota, but you could see the progress they were making with him. Brady was another one you could see. No, it was really good. It was really good. Batherson and Norris both made big progress there. So, no, I thought it was really good and just continue to evolve and get better. And now I think, and this is no disrespect meant to Mr. Melnick, who passed away, but the pockets are deeper now than maybe when he was there. And that's normal. That's okay. That's just part of the deal.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff there. All right, let's get over right now. Well, first of all, Troy, I just want to get your take on the game. In your opinion, is the most specific aspect of the game that Toronto needs to change to stay alive tonight?
Get harder on pucks, especially in the offensive zone. They got to dominate the offensive zone on the cycle and the board play. And if they don't, if they're one and done all the time, they're going to be done. They'll be golfing. What's today? Friday. They'll be golfing Sunday. I'm just telling you, that's just the reality of it. They got to be harder. You know, maybe I'm draconian. Maybe I'm just too old school, but I see too many turnaways. I don't see enough finishing on checks. I don't see enough guys going hard to the net. They're pulling off, getting to the corner. Get to the net. Make Florida take penalties. You know, I know their penalty kill is good. I get it. I know it's good. Everybody knows. Carolina and Florida are the two best penalty killing teams. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But Florida, I mean, what has Toronto done to make Florida uncomfortable? Nothing. I don't think anything. Jimmy, three things you got to accomplish in a playoff series: concern, doubt, and fear. You got to make the other team concerned. You got to make them doubt, and then you got to make them fearful. I thought after game 2, they might have maybe a little concerned, but there was no doubt or fear. And I said that on numerous shows. But now Toronto on the other side, they're concerned. They're clearly doubting. And I'm going to say until probably 7 to 10 minutes into the game, they're probably fearful they're going to lose. And when they lose, if they lose, they're going to get pummeled when they get home.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
That's where the fear factor kicks in.
I'm so glad you brought up the cycle thing too, Pierre, because I remember before the series started, that was your key. And they did it for games 1 and 2, more so in game.
Yes, they did. They definitely did. Yep, I apologize. Jimmy has a little bit of a technical difficulty. He will be joining us soon. But Jimmy's point about what I was saying before the series started was about they had to get offensive zone time. They had to get the pucks in deep. And one of the biggest reasons why they had to get pucks in deep was to take away some of that vicious forecheck that the Florida Panthers are really good at and known for. And so because they weren't able to do it after game 2, game 3, game 4, game 5, look at the toll, the physical toll that it's taken on Christopher Tanev. Look at the physical toll it's taken on Jake McCabe. Look at the physical toll it's taken on Morgan Riley. The only 2 guys that I think haven't been pulverized in this series by the forecheck, one is Simon Benoit, and the other one is Brandon Carlo. Those are the only 2 guys. Everybody else in that defense, you could see they're not nearly the same. So as we wait for Jimmy to come back, I'm more than happy to take your questions. So if Anello, you and Sammy can start putting some questions on, it would be my honor and privilege to answer some of them. Alex Evanovsky, the last stand of the core 4 tonight. If those guys care about being Leafs and being together, they got to win these next 2 games. I think it gets broken up if they don't at least get to the Eastern Conference Final. Alex, I would agree with you. I'm not even going to pretend. I had the Toronto Maple Leafs getting to the Stanley Cup Final, and I thought they would lose to the Colorado Avalanche. So I clearly got that wrong. Colorado lost in the first round in a Game 7. But honestly, you're right. I believe that if it doesn't, and obviously Marner's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, unless something miraculous happens. So there's part of the core 4 gone. What happened to John Tavares? There's another part of the core 4. So I do think you're onto something if they don't get at least to the Eastern Conference Final. Thanks, Alex. Jimmy, are you back? Jimmy's not back. Next question, Frankie O. Where do you see Michael Hayes fitting into the lineup? If Habs get an elite second center, does Hayes become the 3? Where's Beck, Kapanen then? Seems like to me Beck, Kapanen become trade bait. Not so fast. Michael Hayes still has to play his second year, his sophomore year at the University of Michigan. We'll see whether he dominates or not. He had a tremendous year this season at Michigan in a very difficult league, obviously the Big Ten. But the Big Ten was underwhelming this year, very underwhelming this year. Big Ten's going to bounce back. There's going to be better players in it. So let's see where Michael Hayes is going to be. Michael Hayes is not a college guy tomorrow and an NHL guy the next day. He's not that player. The league's too hard right now. So he's going to require some time. And by the time he gets to Laval, I got to think Owen Beck and Kapanen will be ahead of him on the depth chart. Hey, Jimmy, welcome back.
We got you back. I apologize. Sorry. I'm going to fix this for next Monday. Did we get to sponsors yet, Pierre?
No, we have not.
All right, so let's do that, and then we will get to back to our Q&A there. All right, of course, TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast@shippedtcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast@shippedtcs.com. And of course, our wonderful gambling sponsors, Betway, where if you sign up for a new membership right now, and again, only available for new members, you get a great offer where even if you lose, you'll get up to $200 credit on your first bet. So go to that code right in front of you right now if you're watching, or if you're just listening, go to the details section and sign up for your new account there. Again, not available for old customers, only new customers, and also not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. Let's get to the sick picks of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by Betway.
All right, we got one game tonight, of course, as we said, Toronto and Florida, Game 6. The Maple Leafs facing elimination. I think they come out and pour out everything but the kitchen sink there in the first period. I don't know if they're going to go on to win. I do have a gut feeling they will. I know I'm on record as saying that, but I'm not going to tell you to bet that because that's just my crazy gut feeling. What I will tell you to bet is that they win the first period. And you can go right now and get them at where I feel like maybe they come out of there 1-0, but then we'll see what happens after that. You can get the money line at great value over at Betway right now. They are plus 170 to win in the first period. So plus 170 on Toronto to win the first period. And then if you go to the goal scoring props, look, he's kind of been up and down in this series, but I think he's going to come alive tonight. And that's Matthew Nyes. And you can get him to anytime goal right now at plus 170 as well. So that's great value for Matthew Nyes. I think this is his type of game. He comes alive and helps them out and does everything he can to help Toronto extend it to 7. Matthew Nyes, anytime goal at 170. Let's get back to the Q&A, guys. What do we got? Juice_03017. How important is it to close out a series as fast as possible to rest players for the next round of playoffs? Pierre, I think that's a great point, don't you?
Oh, yeah. It's very important to close out series. You never know. Like, one extra game could get a guy hurt. You never know. One extra game could, hurt your goalie, which is a really important part of it, just wear and tear. We saw it happen with Stolarz in the first game of this series. And it's not a knock on Joseph Woll, but the truth is that Toronto hasn't been as good in goal. Like, I think and I'm not trying to be mean here, I think if Stolarz plays game 3, Toronto wins game 3, and they're up 3-0 in the series, and the series is probably over.
Yep,
but
I agree.
They gave a little hope in an overtime game to Florida, and all of a sudden they lose game 4. And now it's all tied up, and you're going back to 5 becoming an important game, and you lose 5, and now you're playing for your life. So that just shows you why you want to get out of series early. It's one example.
Yeah. And I'm glad you say, like, it's no knock on Wall, but I think the way things have been going towards the end of the season and into the playoffs and to that point, it shook the lineup. It shook the locker room to see him go down, especially the way he did, Pierre. I mean, obviously what happened with his concussion, a moment like that, regardless of who the player is, that's a tough thing to look at and get past. And so I really think it had an emotional, mental effect on the Leafs. And I think that was a big difference in this series so far, but I'm with you. And by the way, I was talking to somebody with the league today, a friend of mine who works for the league, and I was trying to get a gauge on when the next round will start in both the West and the East. The word right now is that it would be Tuesday. So you think about it. If Florida closes it out right now, that's 1, 2, 3 days full rest for the Florida Panthers if they can close it out.
Jimmy, just let me caution you on a couple things.
Okay.
A lot of these are not, if Toronto loses, just calm for a second.
Okay. No, I agree with you.
No, just let me say something.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Marketplace matters for national TV ratings, and marketplace matters significantly for weekend primetime games. Mm-hmm. So they have no idea until these series are determined. Like, Edmonton is not a must-watch TV team in the United States.
Right.
They got issues on this. I'm just telling you. If Winnipeg wins their series with Dallas, they got a major national TV issue in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So just,
And let me
I
ask
don't know who your friend is, Jimmy, but I'm telling you how it works.
Okay. No, and I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. And so let me ask you this just quickly, not to veer away from the Q&A here quickly, but in terms of TV ratings, I know I get what you're saying. If it's an all Canadian final in the West.
Well, no, but it's not just an all Canadian final. It's Winnipeg versus Edmonton. It's not Vancouver versus Calgary.
Or not Toronto. Yeah.
No, it's the West now. Just the West in Canada.
Yep. What if in the East, though? I get, right, Dallas is a big TV market. But if it is, if you ended up having, say, a Stanley Cup final at Carolina, Dallas somehow, is that a bad matchup TV market-wise? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. That's what I thought. So the scenarios altogether aren't exactly great.
Go look at the number from 2006. NBC just started their national coverage. Carolina played Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you talking about
and I remember the writers, all the Wizards, bashing NBC because they couldn't get, a rating number, I think, of over 2.2 million at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Let's see how Carolina Dallas does, fellas.
Yeah.
Let's see how that does.
Yeah, and of course, then obviously it improved as you guys went on when you got like teams like Pittsburgh, Detroit.
You had the Pittsburgh. Then you had the next year. You had Ottawa, Anaheim. That wasn't much better. So, but that number improved, and that's when the negativity from the writers stopped because they saw the exponential growth. But that first year, there's like, oh yeah, let's bash these guys.
So valid point by you. If they can get a Saturday or Sunday matchup at any time, they're going to take it.
They have to. This is going to be so. Whatever they're pontificating on in the league office, they know what I just told you and our listeners.
Oh yeah. And I will say that's not somebody in the league office. That's just somebody whose job depends on the schedule. So I'll leave it at that. All right. Next question. Pearl of Wisdom. Question. Is there a path to both Ekblad and Bennett being signed in the offseason without losing too much depth?
I think so, actually. I don't know what Jimmy feels, but I think so. Part of it's because they're established there. If they ever were to win 3 in a row, then you're talking about legacy that Steve was talking about. I thought really smart, by the way, some of the points Steve made. But if you ever win 3 in a row, if you're Florida and you leave, I'm not sure that's the way to go because you're living in a no-tax state. You're going to get paid, and you're talking about lifetime opportunities in Florida that you'll never get anywhere else. You'll never get anywhere else.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. All right, next question. Kevin McClafferty. Hey, guys, was wondering if you heard anything new on the Islanders search. Hearing from people close to ownership that Brendan Shanahan could be an option as a president of hockey operations. Yeah, Kevin, I'm not sure if you were here yesterday, but somebody else asked that, and we have not heard anything substantial. Not enough, Pierre. I think you'd agree that we feel comfortable.
No, but the only thing I'd say is relationships matter, and Shanahan's got a relationship with John Collins. They were at the league office together, so there's a relationship there, and maybe people are just putting 1 + 1 equaling 2. Mm-hmm. John Collins is one of the owners of the Islanders right now, and Brendan, as far as I know, still has a home in the tri-state area. I'm not going to say where it is, but I believe he does. So yeah, I don't know if that's legitimate or not, but my only question is, it's just a question. Under his stewardship over a decade now, what have the Islanders actually went to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Over the time that he was running Toronto.
Yep.
So
Toronto has not done that.
No, they have not.
Yep. Good point on that. Pierre, quickly too, my question here to you on what you're just saying in terms of connections, whether he's there as he's rumored to maybe be staying in a different position or he moves on, he's still got relationships with the people on the Islanders. Does Lou Lamoriello's connection to Brendan Shanahan facilitate anything?
I don't know how good that relationship was. Brendan let him go.
Yeah. Good point.
Brendan let him go.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right. Well, maybe it affects things in a bad way. Who knows? We'll see.
I don't know.
All
I don't
right.
know. But all I know is Blue had a chance to stay in Toronto, and Brendan didn't keep him.
Yep. All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski. Games like last night just make me question how serious Dallas is a threat to Edmonton. The offense just disappears at times. It did last year against Edmonton, and it did last night. Do you agree? Valid point.
I was disappointed in Dallas. I said it to Jimmy before. I was really disappointed in their game.
Yep.
I didn't like their game. I don't think Pete DeBoer likes their game either from last night, but you got to move on. Just turn the page is what they say now. Just turn the page. Move on. You got to game 6 at home, go win 6 at home. That's all.
Yep.
But don't dwell on last night. But did I think they played a good game? No, I did not. You had nine shots after 40 minutes again on Connor Hellebuyck. You didn't have 20. You had 9.
Yeah. It can't be that way in a potential clincher. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, I am just wondering how you motivate Marner and Matthews. I think they're motivated. I just think they're struggling. I mean, you can be motivated and still not produce. It happens. I'm going to go on record as saying, Pierre, I just think I get it. I said this yesterday, but I get it. Something's going on with Matthews. Keep that in mind when you're judging his game right now. Don't be so quick to unleash the hate on him as I see it it's just crazy right now on social, Pierre, the stuff people are saying about him. Like when the injury report comes out, those people are going to regret that. And they're going to.
That's why I defer to you on the social media stuff, because I don't want to read that, because I just don't think it's fair.
Yeah.
Like I told you about Patrick Laine when he got benched and everybody was shredding. Oh, he got benched because he doesn't care. And he got crushed. Like I have a sister. I have a sister that's a Canadiens fan, and she's telling me this. I got a brother that's a Canadiens fan, and he's telling me this. I got another brother that's a fan of the New York Rangers, and he's telling me this.
Yep.
And I got all these people telling me this, and I'm going, well, let me tell you guys something.
Yeah.
That kid's hurt.
Yep.
And so I think they were saving him from himself. And
exactly.
Like, no way, really? I'm like, yeah, he's hurt. And then the next day it comes out, he's hurt.
And then that photo or video came out in the locker room after one of their wins when they were celebrating. He was there, in his suit. You had him play in the game, and he's clapping, and he couldn't move one of his hands. Remember?
Yes. I mean, like, come on.
Said, look, that's what Pierre's been saying the whole time. Like,
come on,
people. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I think sometimes maybe, as Pierre said, the Leafs did in the game the other night. Sometimes did they not go in and take the hit like they should? Yeah, there's times when but to say these guys aren't trying, I mean, these are professionals, man. They want to win the cup. They're trying. You don't get to the NHL by not trying. I know it's hard to watch and it's frustrating as a fan, but sometimes maybe take a step back and get in their skates and think about it. Do you really think they're not trying in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
It'd be so much easier for them to do well. They wouldn't have to take all this abuse. I'd rather play hard and lose than play not so hard and lose and get crushed. I do think they're trying. I also think there's some issues in terms of schematic to how they're playing. The cycle game was so important going in, and for whatever, I don't know why. Maybe it's just Florida's so much better, Jimmy. Maybe they are.
And they adjusted,
And they're just Florida's playing better than them right now. Well, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but I think Toronto will give an A effort. Whether it's good enough or not, I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great point there too, Pierre. I think a lot of times as fans, even as media too, me watching, you forget about the other team and what they're doing, right? Maybe it's just they're better. Maybe this is just a better team than Toronto, or maybe they're just playing better. You got to always factor in the other side as well.
The guy that, I was concerned about his health going in was Matthew Tkachuk.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew's gotten under their skin, and he's done exactly what Matthew's really good at. And that assist on the power play goal that he made in Game 3, actually, sorry, Game 4. That assist on the power play goal, that may have changed the whole series. I know people say, "Oh no, Bennett's hit on Stolarz." I think if you go watch that game, Toronto had killed off all those penalties, and they're at the end of the first period. And then Tkachuk makes the cross-ice pass, the seam pass, cross-ice seam pass, and it goes in the net. It's a spectacular play by Tkachuk. If they don't score there, they're 0 for 4 in the first period on the power play. I'm telling you right now.
I'm so glad here, though.
I don't know if they win.
totally agree with you, and I'm so glad you brought up Tkachuk because that's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. I don't think Matthews is not trying. What I do think is he's failing to compensate for whatever his injury is and adjust with different areas of his game, whether that's a physical aspect or a mental aspect. While Tkachuk on the other side, he's doing that.
Agreed.
And that's how he's still making a difference.
I agree.
All right. Next question. Franco, I'm thinking a blockbuster deal involving Dobson, Horvat, or Barzell to Habs for the Beck, Mayu, and a first rounder. What do you say? I don't want to trade Mayu if I'm the Canadians.
Dobson and Horvat. Can we put that back up, please?
Yeah, put it back up.
Please.
Guys, do we have it?
So it was Beck, Mayu, and a first.
Yep.
Was that right for Horvat and Dobson? I would not do that if I was Montreal.
There we go. That's it.
I would not do that if I was Montreal. I would not do that. I'd not do that.
Do I try to get Horvat?
No.
That was looked into.
No, I'd rather have Barzell.
Okay. Oh yeah, for sure. Good point. All right, next question.
But I had to think about it. It's a good question.
Yeah, it was.
I had to think about it.
Proposal.
I had to think about it.
That's a former NHL manager thinking about it for you there. So good question, Franco. Pierre, what is the most memorable gold medal game you ever called at the World Junior Championship? Oh, I know, but I won't say.
No, there are a bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them. I'm going to say that maybe the most memorable is a John Carlson golden goal from 2010 in Saskatoon when the Americans won. The other one that I'd say that was really impressive was Canada beating Sweden in overtime in 2008 in Pardubice in the Czech Republic. And that was a great Canadian team. Drew Doughty, Luke Shen, Steven Stamkos, John Tavares, Claude Giroux, Brad Marchand, like PK Subban. You go look at that Canadian team. It was unbelievable. And the Swedes took them right. So I'm going to say those are probably two. One was the Americans winning in overtime, and one was Canada winning in overtime. And they were pretty close. One was in 08 in Pardubice, Czech Republic, and one was in 10 in Saskatoon with John Carlson getting the golden goal.
And I would say, Pierre, in terms of Olympics, easily 2010, right?
Oh,
like
not even, please,
right?
Not even close. The 2010 Olympics, I've done 02, I've done 6, I did 10, I did 14, I did 18. It is not even close.
Yeah.
10's the best Olympic tournament they ever had. Yeah, and the city of Vancouver was amazing. What a host.
Yeah.
What a host. And the best summer one I ever went to was London. London in 12 was, I did water polo with the great Doc Emmerich. That was, the London Olympics were phenomenal. The whole country, the Commonwealth, the city of London, it was phenomenal. It was unbelievable how good it was.
All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, what are your thoughts on Caden Lindstrom's playoff so far in the WHL? Looks good to me. Yep. Think this might help teams look more favorably towards Roger McQueen, given his injury history? Yep. Great question, Alex.
Alex is so on it. I love it. Yeah, and the answer is yes and yes. So Lindstrom's doing really well, obviously. Now, I just want to paraphrase. It's also against younger players, so just factor that in. He's a bit older now. But yeah, I think that's legit. Both those are legit. And I think McQueen's getting a lot of extra study. I do. I think a lot of teams are watching McQueen very close.
All right. Next
question. Great point by Alex. Really good.
Randy Workman. Would Card
yes.
the second line center?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yes. Randy. Great call.
Yes.
But here's my retort to Randy. Well, I think that's great, and I would do it in a heartbeat. Randy, why would the Flames trade him right now?
Yeah.
That's my only question, because
birth certificate.
Yes, I get it, but you have a young team. You need some of those vets in there.
I know,
He's got a Stanley Cup ring.
They might be looking at some other stuff, like Matt Coronado. I'm just telling you, Matt Coronado can play center and can play wing, and he just signed a long extension. And Jimmy, I've been telling you about Matt Coronado since he was a freshman at Harvard.
No.
And so I'm just telling you, Matt Corn, and I remember when he got sent the money. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, no, actually, Calgary's doing the right thing.
They're doing the wonderful thing. And Pierre, I also think the timing of it was great. Like, that's going to be a hell of a deal in a couple of years.
Oh,
a steal.
I just remember we did, not just me, but our other people in the management group, when Batherson's contract got done and Kachuk's contract got done. I was there for those, and people are like, well, the money. I'm like, in 2 years, that money's going to be nothing, man.
Yep,
nothing.
Exactly.
Brady Kachuk's not the highest paid player in Ottawa.
Yeah,
Tim Stutzla is.
Yep.
I didn't do his contract. That was after I was gone.
Think about that.
Like, I'm just telling you, like, those contracts. I just remember, being part of the Kachuk deal, and I just remember taking a phone call from somebody in our ownership group, and they're like, "Thank God, like I can digest this." I'm like, "Okay." He said a few other things, but that was one of the things he said to me.
The owners look at it a little different, right?
Yeah.
Signing a check. All right, next question. FFFF. Hey, Pierre, you were talking about Jamie Benn. What kind of exercises did he have to do to improve his speed?
He was doing a lot of plyometrics. He was doing a lot of band work. He was doing a lot of jump rope. He was doing a lot. And I was watching him do it. And the guy that was right next to him, and I give him full marks, he's no longer playing in the league. He's working in the league as a management person. He's an assistant GM in Pittsburgh, Jason Spezza. Jason Spezza was right next to Jamie Benn. And I'm convinced that relationship extended Jason's career probably 2 or 3 years. And I think Jason would be the first person to tell you that. Can't say enough good things about the work habits I saw Ben put forth, the strength and conditioning department, the sports science people in Dallas, and Spezza being there to push him. Those guys had unbelievable respect for one another. Tremendous respect.
Here the other day, I was complimenting how much Sagan's matured over the years. Did Spezza have any effect there, do you think?
I think. Jason's such a solid citizen and such a good family guy. It's hard not to really have respect for the way he carries himself as a person. I used to play in his charity golf tournament and speak at it in Ottawa when he was playing for the Senators. And it was always just a thrill to be there, just because that you had a chance to hang out with him and Daniel Alfredson, these are very, very honorable people. Todd White was another guy that I remember. Chris Phillips. They had some really honorable guys in Ottawa in those days. Phenomenal guys, really good people.
Good. All right, next question. Alex, again, speaking of sports science, what would you say a player can still be in their prime years in today's generation, 32 to 33? I went back and looked at it. It was usually 31 to 32 before the decline happened.
Yeah, I had a long talk with somebody this morning, Alex. I'm going to be transparent with you. On the way to the golf course, I played golf this morning. And I was up early, and I was going over there, and I was talking to an NHL person. And he said, I hear you and that Jimmy Murphy guy talking about different things. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, I kind of agree with you guys on certain things. And he says, what do you think about this? I go, what's that? He goes, I would never sign a player 30 years of age or older to more than a 2 or 3 year contract. He said, I'd probably agree with you. I said, unless it was Crosby or unless it was Peter Forsberg, different guys. But most players I wouldn't. But now I think I would say, just to be fair, I might do it at 32, but I wouldn't do it at 33. Does that make sense, Jimmy? Like I go maybe a year longer with a 32-year-old compared to where I used to be now, 30, 31, and that's it. I'm not going long. But on a 32, I might, but on a 33, I would not. So I think sports science has extended it maybe a year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this too, Pierre. We'll get more in depth maybe in between rounds, but I want to talk to you about a player on the Florida Panthers, used to be on the Boston Bruins, and that's Brad Marchand, and what you would do with his next contract. But let's get to that next week.
Yeah, we'll do that next week. Let's see if they can win or not. Game 7 of this series is on, if there is one, is Sunday. Game 7, it's Sunday night. So Monday, no matter what, we'll talk about it.
All right, sounds good. Next question. Big guy, how do you not play as a 200-foot player as an NHL forward?
That's a great question. I know a lot of guys that don't, because they're cheating on the offensive side of the puck. So they're cutting the rink probably almost in half. So there are a lot of guys that don't. I'm not going to give names because I don't think it's good to beat people up. I don't, especially now. A lot of teams aren't playing anymore. And the guys that are playing, they're going to all compete until they have to start next season again. So, no, but a lot of guys cheat on the wrong side of the puck. They're looking for offense. They're not looking to play defense.
Pierre, quickly, how much do you think the salary cap has affected players being forced to play more of a 200-foot game? Because you know what? GMs and owners are going to look at it and say, I got to fit you under the cap. If you're not going to do this, I'll find another guy that will. Like, how much does the cap force players to do that more?
It doesn't. So it's a great question too, but I don't think it does. So your top six guys they're getting the windfall. They're getting the money. It's your guys from 6 through 12. Those are the guys where if they don't play 200 feet, they're not playing. They're going to be see you later, alligator. So I think the top six will always be the top six. It's the guys that are below the top six that they might not have the same. Craig Patrick used to say this all the time when we'd be preparing for arbitrations and things like that, because the system's different now. And be like, hey, look, I'm going to give it or take it or leave it to the guy. And we're all like, holy moly, this guy's an important player. He goes, hey, he either wants to be or he doesn't. And we're like, oh, man, he's an important part of our team. And usually it worked. Like, guys knew. Yeah. Okay, here's what, I got to take it or I got to leave. And I don't want to leave, So.
Yep. All right. Next question. What do we got? I think we got like 3 more here. Okay. Peter Menodorakos. Hey, guys, you think someone like Perbix is a good option for Montreal? I like him a lot. To have that vet in the lineup, I don't see both Reinbacher and Mayu making the opening day lineup. I do understand that 2C is a priority.
Yeah, no, but those are fair. Perbix is a good player, very useful. I think he really surprised a lot of people. I know one of the scouting guys, top guys in Tampa, and he was always bullish on Perbix. He says not going to be a big name guy. He's just going to be a good player, and he has been. He's been a very good player for them. I don't know. I think both Reinbacher and Mayu will probably be on the opening night roster. Doesn't mean both are going to play. I think they'll be on the roster, and then they'll figure out after the first 10 games what's going on, or after the first 5 games what's going on, and somebody will be dispatched, and I think one of those 2 will be there. I don't know if both of them will be there for the whole season, but I think one of the 2 will be.
I'm with you. All right, next question. Chad Laidlaw. How different would things look had Marchand scored in Game 5 on that breakaway at home versus Florida? He's talking, of course, about 2023 Bruins. Fast forward to now, he has arguably the biggest goal in this series. Good point, Chad.
No, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you argue with that?
No.
But he did.
So many more.
But there are a lot of those. We could go around the league and say, what if he did this? What if he did that? Like last night, I was surprised. I'm watching the game, Winnipeg game, Dallas, and there was an icing. And Dallas couldn't change. And the puck ends up in the net off the icing.
Yep.
And I'm going, did the 3 announcers not see that? Like, what? Why are we not talking about that? It's a huge play in the game.
Right. And it's little moments like Chad's speaking about, or not little, but it's
that's why I'm bringing it up. Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up, Jimmy. It's like Chad just said, like, if Marchand scores it, but he didn't. So
I know.
Last night, I want to hear, holy moly, they iced the puck for no reason. Yeah. And then the puck ends up in the net. And you're like, there was no wiggle room. Then you were in trouble if you were Dallas.
Yeah. What if you're looking back and then you're sitting there in the third period in Game 7 and you're about to lose and you're Dallas? You're going to be like,
how do you think
that icing call?
How do you think Buchnevich's summer's going?
Oh, Pierre.
How do you think his summer's going?
Right. Yep.
We wouldn't even be talking Winnipeg right now if you didn't do that.
No. Exactly. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what can you tell me about former UConn defenseman Viking Gustafsson Nyberg? He's going to Detroit prospect camp this summer. He's 6'6". Any chance or promise for him with the team?
Not right away, but I watched him a lot. Plays for Mike Cavanaugh. He was a portal guy, came from one of the Michigan schools, I think Tech maybe, or Northern, I forget, but he's a portal guy. He's got good offensive skills for a guy that long. He skates really well. I think he's got huge upside. No, I like him a lot. He was a good player for UConn this year. I probably saw him probably 8 times live in the building live. So, no, he's a good player. I saw him twice at the start of their first 2 games were against Colgate. I was at both games. And then I saw him twice against Northeastern. That's 4. Saw him twice against UMass. That's 6. Saw him against BC. I saw him at least 8 times, Jimmy. At least 8. So no, that's a good development camp signing. Really good. Here's one for you. I know everybody's talking about all these development guys. There are a lot of rumors that some teams aren't doing dev camp. What they're going to do is they're going to only fly in draft picks, keep them there for 2 days, no on ice, and send them home. So some teams are doing that. I can tell you right now they are. Not a lot, but I think some teams are doing that.
Wow. I know the Bruins will have theirs because I got the letter from the Bruins, the email from the Bruins. All right. I think we got one more question. What do we got? Is that it? That might be it, Pierre. I think we're good. Okay. We're good to go. Thank you for filling in when my connection dropped there. I appreciate it.
Teamwork, man. Teamwork, all good.
Yep. And thank you to Steve Werier for joining us. That was really insightful stuff. I like that. It was good back and forth. Got some different perspectives there. And thanks to you in the viewers in the comment section for all your questions, and to all our listeners. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Enjoy the hockey this weekend. And we will talk to you on Monday on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.